My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I stared at the little blue pills in my palm. "Are you sure these are safe, Vanessa?" "Oh my God, Sophia, not this again." My cousin rolled her eyes, adjusting her designer handbag. "Look at me, I'm living proof they work. Besides, I have over 200 satisfied clients. You're just anxious because you're finally losing weight." I was losing weight all right, 20 pounds in 2 weeks, along with my appetite, my sleep, and increasingly, my sanity. Vanessa had always been the family's success story. At 32, she transformed herself from the chubby cousin into a fitness influencer with a massive following. When she approached me about trying her specially formulated weight loss supplements, my family practically forced me to accept. "Don't be ungrateful," Mom had said. "Those pills cost $200 a bottle, and she's giving them to you at family rates." Family rates still meant $100 per bottle. But everyone insisted it was worth it. After all, look how well they worked for Vanessa and all her clients. Their before and after photos were stunning. The first week was amazing. My appetite vanished and I felt euphoric. Vanessa beamed when I dropped 7 pounds in just 5 days. See, the family metabolism is finally kicking in. But then the side effects started. It began with sleepless nights, my heart pounding so hard I could see my chest moving. When I mentioned it to Vanessa, she laughed. "That's just your metabolism revving up. Here, take another pill. It'll even you out." By the second week, I was experiencing severe mood swings, ranging from manic productivity to crushing anxiety. My hands trembled constantly, and I could feel my heart racing even when sitting still. But the weight kept dropping, and everyone kept praising me. "You look incredible," my aunt gushed at Sunday dinner. "Vanessa, these pills are miracle workers." I pushed my untouched food around my plate, trying to ignore the way my vision occasionally blurred. "I think something's wrong," I whispered to Mom in the kitchen. "My heart feels weird." "Stop being dramatic," she sighed. "You're just not used to being thin. Vanessa knows what she's doing. She's certified in holistic nutrition." That certification, I later learned, came from a weekend online course. The breaking point came during a presentation at work. I was standing in front of my colleagues when the room started spinning. My heart was racing so fast it felt like it would explode. I need a minute," I gasped, gripping the podium. My boss looked concerned, but I waved her off. "Just anxiety," I told myself. Just like Vanessa said. In the bathroom, I splashed water on my face and took another pill, just as Vanessa had instructed. "If you feel shaky, it means your body needs it," she'd explained. "The shakiness is just toxins leaving your body." Back at my desk, I tried to focus on my computer screen, but the words kept blurring. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. When I checked my fitness tracker, my pulse was at 165, while sitting still. Panicked, I called Vanessa. "You're being paranoid," she snapped. "Do you want to be fat forever? This is why you've never succeeded at dieting before. You always quit when it gets hard." But my heart, "Take another pill and lie down. You're just having a panic attack because you're finally succeeding. Don't you dare waste all the money you've invested in these supplements." I hung up and reached for the pill bottle with trembling hands. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe. The world suddenly tilted sideways. I felt my body sliding from my chair, but I couldn't stop it. The last thing I heard was my assistant screaming for help as my body began to convulse. I woke up in the ER, surrounded by beeping machines and concerned faces. A stern-looking doctor was examining a printout, his expression grim. "Your heart rate was over 200 when you arrived," he said. "We're running toxicology screens now. Can you tell me exactly what supplements you've been taking?" Before I could answer, Vanessa burst into the room, clutching her designer bag. "She's just dehydrated," she announced loudly. "She hasn't been drinking enough water with the supplements." The doctor turned to her. "And you are?" "I'm her wellness coach. Those pills are completely natural and FDA approved." "Ma'am, I need you to step out," a nurse interrupted, moving toward Vanessa. "But I have paperwork proving they're safe." Vanessa rummaged in her bag, dropping a bottle. Blue pills scattered across the floor. The doctor picked one up, examining it closely. His eyes narrowed. "Nurse, call security and contact the FDA immediately." "What? You can't do that." Vanessa's perfectly composed facade cracked. "Those are proprietary supplements. As security arrived to escort my cousin out, I caught a glimpse of something I'd never seen before. Fear on Vanessa's face. The doctor turned back to me, holding up the pill. Ms. Chen, these are not FDA-approved supplements. Based on their appearance, I have a pretty good idea what they contain. And if I'm right, you're lucky to be alive. As I lay there, watching the chaos unfold, I realized this was just the beginning. The truth about Vanessa's miracle weight loss empire was about to come crashing down. And I had a feeling those 200 satisfied clients wouldn't be satisfied for long. The toxicology results came back within hours. The doctor's face was grim as he reviewed them with 2 FDA agents who had arrived at the hospital. These natural supplements contain dangerously high levels of amphetamines, sibutramine, and several banned substances, he explained. The combination could have caused heart failure, stroke, or worse. One agent took notes while the other showed me photos of various pills. Are these similar to what your cousin provided? I nodded, still connected to heart monitors that beeped steadily. She said they were specially formulated for her clients. That they were all natural. Miss Parker, the agent leaned forward. Your cousin has been on our radar for 6 months. Your case might be what we need to stop her operation. My phone buzzed continuously with messages from family members. They ranged from concerned to accusatory. Mom, why did you let them call the FDA? This could ruin Vanessa's business. Aunt Linda. Vanessa's crying. How could you do this to family? Uncle Pete. Those pills worked for everyone else. You must have taken too many. I turned off my phone as another wave of dizziness hit me. The withdrawal symptoms were starting. The doctor had warned me they would be rough. 2 days later, still in the hospital, I received an unexpected visitor. A young woman, barely in her 20s, stood nervously at my door. I'm Jamie, she said quietly. I was one of Vanessa's first clients. She hesitated before continuing. I almost died 3 months ago. Over the next hour, Jamie shared her story. She'd been hospitalized with heart complications after taking Vanessa's pills for 6 months. When she tried to warn others, Vanessa threatened her with a lawsuit, claiming Jamie had violated the client confidentiality agreement. She made me sign a paper saying my complications were due to a pre-existing condition. Jamie's hands trembled. I was scared. But when I saw the news about your case, I knew I had to come forward. The news, I hadn't even realized this had made the news. My phone started working again as more messages poured in. But these were different. I took those pills too. I thought I was going crazy. My sister has been in and out of the ER. I'm still having heart problems. The FDA agents returned the next day. We've received over 50 reports since your story broke, they informed me. We're executing a search warrant at your cousin's home office today. That's when my mother showed up, tears streaming down her face. They're arresting Vanessa. You have to tell them this is all a misunderstanding. I looked at my mother, still connected to monitors, still fighting through withdrawal symptoms. Mom, she could have killed me. She could have killed lots of people. But she was trying to help. She built this business from nothing. She built it by selling dangerous illegal drugs as natural supplements, I replied, my voice stronger than I felt. That's not helping, that's hurting. The raid on Vanessa's home office revealed the ugly truth. She'd been ordering raw pharmaceutical ingredients from overseas, pressing them into pills in her garage, and selling them as natural supplements at a massive markup. The FDA found enough banned substances to trigger federal trafficking charges. But the worst discovery wasn't the drugs. It was her client files. She knew, I whispered, reading the report. She had documented all the side effects, all the hospitalizations. She knew people were getting sick. The next few weeks passed in a blur of interviews, medical appointments, and legal meetings. More victims came forward. Over 300 in total. Many had similar stories, rapid weight loss followed by serious health complications, all while Vanessa insisted they were just detoxing. My family split into 2 camps. Some, like my parents, stood firmly behind Vanessa, insisting she was being persecuted for helping people. Others, after seeing the evidence, couldn't believe they promoted her products to friends and family. Aunt Linda showed up at my apartment one evening, looking haunted. I gave those pills to my daughter, she said, voice breaking. My own daughter. I trusted Vanessa. The preliminary hearing was set for next month. Vanessa's lawyer tried to contact me, offering a deal. If I declined to testify, they'd cover all my medical expenses. I sent back a single response. How much is a life worth? As I stood in front of my mirror, looking at my now gaunt reflection, I touched the heart monitor I still had to wear. The doctors weren't sure if the damage to my heart was permanent, but my resolve certainly was. My phone buzzed with another message, this time from Jamie. Support group meeting tomorrow. 20 former clients are coming. We need to hear your story. I looked at my trembling hands, still detoxing from Vanessa's miracle pills, and typed back, I'll be there. It's time everyone heard the truth. Because sometimes the most dangerous predators aren't strangers. They're the family members we trust the most. The courthouse was packed on the first day of Vanessa's trial. I sat with Jamie and dozens of other victims, all of us sharing similar stories of betrayal and ongoing health issues. Some still wore heart monitors like mine, silent reminders of what those natural supplements had done to us. Vanessa sat at the defendant's table, somehow still managing to look like an Instagram-perfect wellness guru. But her carefully curated image cracked when the prosecution presented their first piece of evidence, her private text messages. If they complained about heart problems, tell them it's anxiety, she'd written to her assistant. Push the maintenance package. They're most vulnerable when they're scared. The texts kept coming, each more damning than the last. Messages about hiding negative reactions, instructions to block clients who asked too many questions, and detailed plans to avoid FDA detection. But the most devastating evidence came from her garage laboratory. Photos showed expired pharmaceutical ingredients stored next to household cleaning supplies, unlabeled pills mixed in plastic bins, and handwritten formulas that would make any medical professional shudder. The defendant didn't just sell dangerous substances, the prosecutor stated. She experimented with people's lives, adjusting drug combinations based on customer complaints, using her own family members as unwitting test subjects. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the stand slowly, still dealing with lingering effects of withdrawal. Vanessa wouldn't meet my eyes. Can you describe what happened after you started taking the defendant's supplements? The prosecutor asked. I told him everything. The rapid weight loss, the racing heart, the tremors. How Vanessa pushed more pills every time I complained. How she used our family relationship to ensure my silence. And did the defendant ever inform you about the actual contents of these pills? No, I said clearly. She said they were natural herbs and vitamins. She said they were safe because she took them too. Vanessa's lawyer tried to paint me as an attention seeker who'd taken the pills incorrectly. But the medical records didn't lie. Neither did the dozens of identical stories from other victims. During the break, my mother approached me in the hallway. She looked older somehow, worn down by the truth she couldn't deny anymore. Did you know? I asked quietly. Did you ever suspect? She started crying. I just wanted to believe her. She was so successful, so confident. When people got sick, she always had explanations. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Each day brought new revelations. Fake before and after photos, paid testimonials, and doctored lab reports. Vanessa's empire of lies unraveled thread by thread. The support group grew larger as more victims came forward. We met weekly, sharing recovery stories and helping each other cope with the lasting effects of Vanessa's miracle cure. Some, like Jamie, had developed chronic heart conditions. Others struggled with severe anxiety and trust issues. Finally, the verdict came, guilty on all counts. Trafficking illegal substances, practicing medicine without a license, criminal negligence, and fraud. The judge's sentence was harsh, 15 years in federal prison and millions in restitution. As they led Vanessa away, she looked back at our family one last time. I only wanted to help people, she said, but her words rang hollow in a silent courtroom. 1 year later, I stood in front of a different audience, a congressional hearing on supplement industry regulation. My testimony, along with others from Vanessa's case, helped push through new laws requiring stricter testing and monitoring of weight loss products. Jamie sat beside me, now working as a patient advocate. Together, we'd started a nonprofit organization helping victims of supplement fraud. Our story had become a cautionary tale, featured in medical journals and consumer protection guides. My heart condition had improved. The doctors said I'd need monitoring for years to come. The tremors finally stopped, but other scars remained, invisible ones that made it hard to trust, hard to take any kind of medication without fear. The family slowly healed too. My mother became one of our strongest supporters, speaking out about the dangers of blind trust and the importance of questioning too good to be true promises. Aunt Linda joined our organization, using her experience to help other parents spot warning signs. Last week, I received a letter from Vanessa in prison. She wrote about finding God, about being sorry, about wanting to make amends. At the bottom, she'd added, "I'm still family. Doesn't that count for something?" I thought about all the lives she'd damaged, all the trust she'd broken, all the health problems she'd caused in the name of helping people. Then I thought about the new laws her case had inspired, the people we were helping now, the changes we created from our collective pain. I wrote back one sentence: family doesn't poison family. Today, I spoke at another support group meeting. Looking around the room at familiar faces growing stronger, at new members finding hope, I realized something important. Sometimes the family you choose, the one built from shared pain and healing, is stronger than the family you're born into. As I touched my heart monitor, now more a badge of survival than a mark of victimhood, I knew we created something powerful from Vanessa's betrayal. We turned poison into purpose, and that was the real miracle. "You left your baby with us 10 years ago." The voicemail screamed through my phone speaker, making me nearly drop my morning coffee. "Emily needs braces, private school tuition, and a whole new wardrobe. You owe us this after abandoning her." I sat at my kitchen counter, a bemused smile playing across my lips as I listened to the hysterical message from Vanessa, my ex-husband Marcus's new girlfriend. The accusations continued. "Marcus told me everything about how you just left her on his doorstep and ran away. What kind of mother does that? You need to take responsibility." My name is Olivia Bennett. I'm 35 and have never given birth to a child in my life. I took another sip of my coffee, letting the familiar aroma ground me as I played the message again. Vanessa's voice dripped with righteous indignation, but all I felt was curiosity. What game were they playing? The timestamp showed the call came at 3 a.m., prime time for drunk dialing or desperate schemes. Given Marcus's history, I was betting on the latter. My phone buzzed again. A text this time. "We know you're getting these messages. Emily needs $25,000 for her private school tuition by next week. It's time to step up and be a mother." I couldn't help but laugh. Marcus had always been manipulative, but this was a new low. During our 5-year marriage, I'd watched him try every trick in the book to extract money from people. Investment schemes, fake business ventures, emotional manipulation. But claiming I had an abandoned daughter, that was creative, even for him. The truth was simple. I left Marcus 8 years ago after discovering he drained our joint accounts to pay off gambling debts. The divorce was quick and clean, thanks to my ironclad prenup. He fought it, of course, trying to claim half of my successful interior design business. But the judge had seen right through him. Another message popped up, this time with a photo attached. A young girl, maybe 9 or 10, with blonde hair and blue eyes, stood smiling at the camera. She was pretty, but looked nothing like me. "Your daughter misses you," the caption read. I saved the photo, adding it to my growing file of evidence. Something wasn't adding up. Marcus knew I couldn't have children. It was a medical fact we discussed during our marriage. I'd had a hysterectomy at 23 due to severe endometriosis. The surgery records were clear and irrefutable. My phone rang again. Marcus this time. I let it go to voicemail. "Olivia, you can't ignore this forever. Emily's your responsibility too. We've protected your secret for 10 years, but if you don't help us now, everyone will know what kind of mother you really are." Protected my secret. I pulled out my laptop and opened a folder labeled Marcus, Evidence. Inside were years of documented messages, financial records, and court papers from our divorce. At the bottom was a subfolder marked Medical, containing scanned copies of my surgery records. I dialed my lawyer's number. "Jessica, it's Olivia. Remember how you said Marcus would try something eventually? Well, he just did, and it's bigger than we expected." Jessica had been my lawyer since the divorce, and she knew Marcus's patterns well. "What's he up to now?" "He and his girlfriend are claiming I abandoned my daughter with them 10 years ago. They want $25,000 for private school tuition." "But you've never." "Exactly. They're sending photos, making threats. Something's not right. Send me everything they've sent you. Don't respond yet. Let me do some digging first." After hanging up, I poured myself another coffee and walked to my home office. The wall of windows overlooked the city skyline, a view I'd earned through years of hard work building my design business. Marcus had always been jealous of my success, constantly trying to insert himself into my company's operations during our marriage. My computer pinged with an email notification. More photos from Vanessa, this time showing the girl, Emily, at various ages, school photos, birthday parties, holidays. They clearly put effort into this charade. But there was something familiar about Emily's face that I couldn't quite place. I started running the photos through a facial recognition program I'd installed after the divorce. Marcus's previous schemes had taught me to be prepared. As the program worked, I scrolled through local news archives from 10 years ago. If there really was an abandoned baby involved, it would have made the news. Nothing came up matching their story. The facial recognition program beeped. A match. My hands stilled on the keyboard as I stared at the results. The girl in the photos was indeed named Emily Carson. Her pictures appeared on a local dance studio's website from 2 years ago. Her parents were listed as Michael and Sandra Carson. I picked up my phone and called Jessica back. Found something interesting, I said when she answered. The girl in her photos? She's not their daughter either. They're using pictures of a local dance student. That's identity theft of a minor, Jessica replied, her voice sharp. Send me what you found. I'm calling in a favor with a detective I know. I forwarded everything, the photos, messages, and facial recognition results. As I did, another voicemail came in from Marcus. Last chance, Olivia. Either you help us with Emily's tuition, or we go public with how you abandoned your baby. Think about what that would do to your precious business reputation. I smiled, thinking about the birth certificate they claimed to have. Even if they'd forged one, it wouldn't match my medical records. Marcus had always underestimated me, assuming I'd either cave to his demands or react emotionally without thinking things through. But I learned from our marriage. Every decision I made now was calculated, every reaction measured. He thought he was pulling off an elaborate scam, but really he was walking right into a trap of his own making. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Detective Morris wants to meet tomorrow morning. Bring everything you have. This is bigger than simple extortion. I started gathering the files, my mind racing. What were Marcus and Vanessa really up to? Why use photos of a real local girl instead of finding pictures online? And why now, after 8 years of silence? Something told me this went beyond their usual scams. They seemed desperate, almost frantic in their demands. The question was, what had pushed them to this point? I was about to find out. Detective Morris's office smelled of coffee and old files. He studied the evidence spread across his desk, his expression growing darker with each document. Your ex-husband and his girlfriend are using photos of Emily Carson, he said, tapping the dance studio printout. Her parents filed a report last week about suspicious people photographing their daughter outside her school. Now we know why. Jessica, my lawyer, leaned forward. This goes beyond harassment and extortion. They're stalking a minor. I felt a chill despite the warm office. Why her? Of all the children they could have chosen for this scam, why pick a local girl? Detective Morris pulled out another file. That's where this gets interesting. We ran background checks on both Marcus and Vanessa. It turns out Vanessa worked as an administrative assistant at Carson Dance Studio 3 years ago. She had access to all the student files, including photos. She stole them before leaving. I asked. More than that, Morris replied. She was fired for suspicious activity with tuition payments. Nothing was proven, but several parents reported missing funds. The studio eventually repaid everyone to avoid scandal. The pieces started falling into place. So they're using photos they already had access to. But why wait 3 years to try this scam? Jessica opened her laptop. I might have an answer for that. I did some digging into their current finances. Marcus took out several high-interest loans 6 months ago. They're due next week. How much? I asked, though I already knew the answer. $25,000. The exact amount they were demanding from me. Detective Morris nodded. They're desperate. But they made a crucial mistake using Emily's photos. Mr. and Mrs. Carson are pressing charges for harassment and unauthorized use of their daughter's image. We've been building a case. My phone buzzed. Another text from Vanessa. Emily's asking why her mom doesn't love her. How can you be so heartless? I showed it to Morris. They're getting more aggressive. Good, he said. Keep documenting everything. Don't block them. We need evidence of every contact. Jessica pulled out another document. I've drafted a cease and desist letter, but given their financial situation, I don't think it will stop them. No, I agreed. Marcus never backs down easily. When we were married, he'd always double down when cornered. He's probably already planning his next move. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. Morris nodded, signaling me to answer on speaker. Hello? Ms. Bennett? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. I'm a reporter with the Daily Tribune. We've received some interesting information about you abandoning your child 10 years ago. Would you care to comment? I met Morris's eyes as I replied carefully, I'm aware of these false allegations. I've never had children. My medical records prove this conclusively. Your ex-husband provided us with a birth certificate. A forgery, I interrupted. Detective Morris at the Central Precinct would be very interested in seeing that document. Shall I transfer you? Silence then. I'll need to verify some things first. After she hung up, Morris was already dialing. I'm calling the fraud unit. Forging birth certificates takes this to a federal level. I sat back, feeling strangely calm. They're getting sloppy. Marcus usually plans his schemes better than this. Desperation makes people careless, Jessica observed. Those loans coming due must have them panicked. Morris finished his call and turned to me. We need to move quickly. Now that they're trying to involve the media, things could escalate. Are you willing to wear a wire? If we can get them to admit to the fraud in person. I thought about Marcus, about all his schemes and manipulations over the years. Yes, it's time to end this. We spent the next hour planning the operation. I would contact them, agree to meet about Emily, and wear a concealed recording device. The police would be nearby, ready to move in once they had a confession. As we finished, Morris's phone rang. His expression turned grave as he listened. That was the fraud unit, he said after hanging up. They found something. Your ex-husband and his girlfriend didn't just forge one birth certificate. They've created several, all for different children. This might be part of a larger scam. Multiple children? Jessica asked, shocked. All targeting wealthy divorced women, Morris confirmed. You're not the first, Ms. Bennett, just the first to fight back with evidence. I thought about the other victims, women who might have paid out of fear or guilt. How many? They've identified 3 cases so far. 2 women paid over $30,000 each to keep the story quiet. I felt anger rising, not for myself, but for those other women. Marcus hadn't changed. He just found a new way to exploit people. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Vanessa, this time with a new photo of Emily outside her school. Today's date was clearly visible on a banner in the background. They were still watching her. I showed Morris the photo. His jaw tightened. That's it. We're moving now. The Carson family has been worried sick about these stalkers. I'm not waiting for them to escalate further. He made another call, mobilizing his team. Jessica started gathering the documents, her movements precise and efficient. I stared at the photo of Emily, an innocent child unknowingly caught up in Marcus's schemes. This wasn't just about money anymore. They crossed a line, endangering a child for their greed. When do we move? I asked Morris. Tomorrow morning. We'll have everything in place by then. He handed me a small recording device. Are you sure you're ready for this? I thought about all the women Marcus had scammed, about Emily and her frightened parents, about the years I'd spent recovering from his manipulation. More than ready, I replied. It's time Marcus learned that some schemes have consequences. The cafe we'd chosen for the meeting was quiet, with just a few early morning customers nursing their coffees. I sat at a corner table, the wire hidden beneath my blouse, waiting for Marcus and Vanessa to arrive. Detective Morris and his team were positioned strategically around the block. Jessica watched from a parked car across the street, ready with the legal documents if needed. They arrived exactly at 9, Marcus looking older than I remembered, his confident stride now tinged with desperation. Vanessa followed, clutching a large envelope that I assumed contained their forged documents. Olivia, Marcus said, sliding into the seat across from me. Finally ready to take responsibility? I kept my voice steady. Show me the birth certificate. Vanessa pulled a document from her envelope and slid it across the table. Proof that you're Emily's mother. Dated 10 years ago. I studied the forgery. It was good work. They clearly invested in quality materials. But the hospital listed didn't match my medical records, and the doctor's signature was too perfect, too crisp for a decade-old document. Interesting, I said. Did you use the same quality paper for Sarah Mitchell's daughter, or Jennifer Cooper's son? Their faces went pale. Marcus recovered first, his voice dropping to a whisper. I don't know what you're talking about. No? The women you scammed before me, the ones who paid to keep things quiet. Vanessa gripped Marcus's arm. We should go. The dance studio must have had lots of photos to choose from. I continued, watching them squirm. All those children's files you had access to before they fired you for stealing tuition money. Shut up, Marcus hissed. You don't know anything. I pulled out my phone, showing them the latest photo they'd sent of Emily. The Carsons filed a police report about stalkers photographing their daughter. Want to explain that? Vanessa stood abruptly, but Marcus pulled her back down. Wait, he said, his tone changing. Look, we can work something out. You always were the smart one, Olivia. There's money to be made here. Are you actually trying to recruit me into your scam? He leaned forward, eyes glinting. Think about it. We have the system perfected. The documents, the emotional manipulation, the press threats. We just need someone with better business sense to help manage it. Someone like the woman whose accounts you drained during our marriage. That was different. I was young, stupid. But this, he gestured to the birth certificate. This is foolproof. These women, they're so afraid of scandal they don't even check the documents properly. And Emily? What about her safety? Vanessa waved dismissively. We're careful. We only photograph from a distance. I'd heard enough. I reached up and adjusted my necklace. The signal. Actually, I said as police officers appeared at every exit, you're not as careful as you think. Detective Morris approached our table, badge out. Marcus Reynolds, Vanessa Porter, you're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, stalking a minor, and forging federal documents. The look of betrayal on Marcus's face was almost comical. You set us up. No, I replied calmly. You did that yourself. I just made sure there were consequences this time. As they were led away in handcuffs, Vanessa turned back. You'll regret this. We know things about you. I stood gathering the forged documents for evidence. You know nothing about me. That was always your weakness. Outside, Jessica met me with a satisfied smile. The Carsons are pressing full charges. With the wire recording and these documents, Marcus and Vanessa are looking at serious time. And the other victims? The fraud unit is contacting them now. Your evidence helped expose the whole operation. I watched the police car carrying Marcus and Vanessa disappear around the corner. The morning sun felt warm on my face, and for the first time in weeks, I felt truly at peace. Later that evening, I sat in my office updating my client files when Jessica called. Thought you'd want to know, they're offering a plea deal. In exchange for lighter sentences, they have to reveal every scam, every victim, every detail. But I said, those women deserve to know the truth. The Carsons wanted to thank you. Your quick action helped stop the stalking before anything worse happened. I thought about Emily safely back to her normal life, unaware of how her photos had been misused. I'm just glad it's over. You know, Jessica added, Marcus asked to talk to you, said he wants to explain himself. I looked at my wall of windows, at the city lights twinkling in the growing dusk. No, I replied. I don't need any more explanations from him. His actions said everything. After hanging up, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out my old wedding album. I kept it as a reminder of lessons learned, but now it felt unnecessary. The woman in those photos, the one who'd once been so easily manipulated, was gone. I dropped the album in my shredder, watching as the past was reduced to confetti. Outside, the city hummed with life, and my future stretched ahead, clear and unencumbered. Sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation or anger. Sometimes it's simply standing firm in your truth and letting justice take its course. Marcus had tried to trap me with lies about a child that never existed. Instead, he'd only proved that I was no longer the woman he could manipulate. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and finally, completely free. You're not really married. Eleanor's voice cut through the elegant dining room like a knife, causing all conversation to halt. My mother-in-law stood at the head of the table, wine glass in hand, a triumphant smirk playing across her face. The wedding was fake. That priest? Just an actor I hired. You've been living a lie for the past year. I watched as the color drained from my husband James's face. Around the table, his siblings and their spouses froze mid-bite, forks suspended in the air. The only sound was the gentle tick of the antique grandfather clock in the corner, counting down the seconds of this carefully orchestrated ambush. My name is Victoria Matthews, and at 32, I never expected to have my marriage declared fraudulent over Sunday dinner. But then again, I never expected a lot of things about Eleanor Blackwood. Mom, what are you talking about? James's voice trembled slightly as he reached for my hand under the table. I gave it a reassuring squeeze, keeping my expression neutral. Eleanor's smile widened as she set down her wine glass. Oh, darling, I couldn't let you actually marry her. A small-town event planner with no family connections. She's so far beneath us. She turned her gaze to me, eyes glittering with malice. I had to protect the family legacy. The room erupted in chaos. James's sister Charlotte gasped. His brother Marcus started arguing with Eleanor, and his father Richard just sat there, staring into his whiskey glass like it held all the answers. But I remained calm, which seemed to irritate Eleanor more than any reaction she might have expected. Nothing to say, Victoria. No tears. No dramatics. I reached for my purse, hanging on the back of my chair. Actually, Eleanor, I do have something to say. Or rather, something to show you. I pulled out my phone, taking my time unlocking it while everyone watched. You see, after that strange conversation we had last week about wedding documentation, I decided to do a little investigating of my own. Her smirk faltered slightly. What conversation? The one you had with your friend Margaret at the country club. You know, where you bragged about how you found the perfect actor to play a priest and how you'd make sure the marriage wasn't legally binding. I started scrolling through my phone. You really should be more careful about where you have sensitive conversations. The ladies' powder room has surprisingly good acoustics. Eleanor's face went from smug to shocked in an instant. You were there. Oh no, I wasn't. But my friend was. You remember Sophia, the new club manager you were so rude to last month? She happened to be in the stall when you came in. I found what I was looking for and held up my phone. She recorded everything. The sound of Eleanor's voice filled the room crystal clear. That little gold digger won't know what hit her. I've arranged everything. The priest will be an actor, the marriage won't be legal, and when the time is right, I'll reveal everything. James will have no choice but to leave her. I paused the recording. But that's not all. After hearing this, I did some checking. Would you like to know what I found? Eleanor gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. You're bluffing. The real Father Michael Thompson, who you thought was out of the country during our wedding, he wasn't. In fact, he was exactly where he was supposed to be, performing our ceremony. Your actor never showed up because Father Thompson arrived first. The marriage license is completely legal, filed with the county clerk's office the very next day. I pulled out a folder from my purse and slid it across the table. Here are copies of all the documentation. Feel free to verify everything. The silence that followed was deafening. James picked up the folder with shaking hands, reading through the papers inside. His father finally looked up from his whiskey, and his siblings stared at their mother in horror. But how? Eleanor stammered. Did you really think I wouldn't do my due diligence? I'm an event planner, Eleanor. I triple-check everything. When Father Thompson called to confirm the ceremony time, he mentioned that someone had tried to cancel his services and hire a replacement. That's when I knew something was wrong. I took a sip of my water, maintaining eye contact with her. I just needed to figure out who was behind it and why. James stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Mom, how could you do this? To me? To us? Eleanor's composure cracked completely. James, darling, I was trying to protect you. She's not one of us. She doesn't understand our world. No, Mom, you don't understand. Victoria isn't just my wife. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And now, he looked around the table, his expression hardening. Now everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. I reached for his hand again, and he gripped it tightly. We had discussed this moment, planned for it, but the reality was still painful to watch. Family was everything to James, and seeing his mother's true colors was devastating. Eleanor sank into her chair, all pretense of control gone. Richard, say something, she pleaded with her husband. But Richard Blackwood finally found his voice, and it wasn't what she expected. I think you've said quite enough, Eleanor. Victoria James, I believe we all owe you an apology. As the implications of what had just happened began to sink in around the table, I couldn't help but think about how differently this evening could have gone if Eleanor had just accepted me into the family. Instead, her attempt to destroy my marriage had only succeeded in exposing her own manipulation. The grandfather clock continued its steady tick, marking the end of Eleanor's reign of control over the Blackwood family. Dinner was definitely over, but this was just the beginning of a very different kind of family dynamic. The aftermath of that Sunday dinner spread through Boston's high society like wildfire. Eleanor's carefully cultivated image as the matriarch of the prestigious Blackwood family crumbled within days. It wasn't just about her failed attempt to invalidate my marriage. It was about the years of manipulation that the incident had brought to light. I sat in my office at Matthew's Events, reviewing contracts for an upcoming charity gala when Charlotte, James's sister, knocked on my door. She looked different now, less polished, more genuine than she had during all those strained family gatherings. "Victoria, do you have a minute?" she asked, hovering in the doorway. "There's something you need to know." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Over the past 2 weeks since the dinner, Charlotte had become an unexpected ally, sharing details about Eleanor's past schemes that even James didn't know about. "Mom's trying to sell the summer house," she said, settling into the chair. "The one that's been in the family for generations. She claims she needs the money for her fresh start, but I found these in Dad's study." She pulled out a stack of papers. I took them, scanning quickly. They were receipts for massive gambling debts, all in Eleanor's name. How long has this been going on? Years, apparently. She's been borrowing against family properties, taking loans from Dad's business associates. That's why she was so desperate to keep you out of the family. She was afraid you'd discover her financial schemes. The irony wasn't lost on me. Eleanor had accused me of being a gold digger while she'd been systematically draining the family's resources. I thought about James, who was already struggling with the revelations about his mother. This would crush him. "Does your father know?" I asked, already suspecting the answer. Charlotte shook her head. "He's been so focused on the company, he just signed whatever she put in front of him. But now," she trailed off, looking troubled. "Now what?" "Now she's threatening to expose some of Dad's old business dealings if he doesn't give her what she wants. She's cornered Victoria, and she's getting desperate." I leaned back in my chair, thinking. Eleanor's desperation made her dangerous, but it also made her predictable. What exactly does she want? $2 million and a public statement from the family supporting her version of events, that the whole wedding scandal was a misunderstanding and that she was acting in the family's best interests. I couldn't help but laugh. She really doesn't give up, does she? No, Charlotte agreed. But this time we have something she doesn't know about. She pulled out one more document, a letter from Eleanor to her friend Margaret, dated just before my wedding to James. In it, Eleanor detailed not just her plan to fake the ceremony, but her years of financial manipulation and her methods for hiding money from the family. "Where did you get this?" I asked, reading through the damning confessions. "Margaret sent it to me. Apparently, Mom tried to implicate her in some of the schemes, and she didn't appreciate being thrown under the bus." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from James. "Mom's called an emergency family meeting for tonight. Said she has an announcement." I showed the message to Charlotte, who grimaced. "She's going to try to control the narrative again." "Not this time," I said firmly. "I think it's time we show everyone exactly who Eleanor Blackwood really is." That evening, we gathered in the Blackwood family library. Eleanor stood by the fireplace, looking every inch the wrong society matron in her expensive suit and perfectly coiffed hair. Richard sat in his usual leather armchair, while James, Charlotte, Marcus, and their spouses arranged themselves around the room. I chose to stand, keeping one hand on the folder containing Margaret's letter. "I've asked you all here because I believe it's time to put this unfortunate situation behind us," Eleanor began, her voice carrying that familiar note of authority. "I'm willing to forgive the recent unpleasantness if we can come to an arrangement." James tensed beside me, but I squeezed his hand, silently asking him to wait. Eleanor continued, outlining her demands: the money, the public statement, the restoration of her social position. She was so focused on her performance that she didn't notice Charlotte slipping out her phone or Marcus moving closer to the door. When she finished, I stepped forward. "That's a very generous offer, Eleanor. But I have a counter-proposal." She blinked, clearly thrown by my interruption. This doesn't concern you. Actually, it concerns all of us, especially when you're trying to blackmail a family into covering up your gambling debts. The color drained from her face. I don't know what you're talking about. I opened the folder and began reading from Margaret's letter. With each word, Eleanor's composure cracked further. By the time I finished, she was gripping the mantelpiece for support. How dare you, she whispered. Those are private matters. Private matters? Richard's voice boomed from his chair. You've been stealing from our family for years, and you call these private matters. Eleanor spun to face him. Richard, I can explain. Save it, he cut her off. Victoria, Charlotte, thank you for bringing this to light. I believe it's time for some real changes in this family. The next few minutes were chaos as Eleanor realized her carefully constructed world was truly crumbling. She threatened, she pleaded, she tried to turn the siblings against each other. But this time, nobody was listening. As security escorted her from the house, I couldn't help but think about how differently things might have turned out if she just accepted me as part of the family. Her determination to get rid of me had ultimately led to her own undoing. James wrapped his arm around my waist as we watched his mother's car disappear down the driveway. I'm so sorry, he whispered, for everything she put you through. I turned to face him, seeing the pain and relief warring in his eyes. Don't be. Your mother thought she could break us apart, but she only made us stronger. Behind us, the Blackwood family was already beginning to heal, making plans to address Eleanor's damage and move forward together. Sometimes I realized it takes losing someone toxic to truly become a family. 6 months after Eleanor's dramatic exit, I stood in the ballroom of the Blackwood summer house, now transformed into a grand party venue. The house that Eleanor had tried to sell to cover her gambling debts had become the site of the family's renewal. Tonight was special. We were hosting a vow renewal ceremony for James and me, a way to reclaim our marriage story on our own terms. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that we were celebrating in the very house Eleanor had attempted to liquidate. As I adjusted the floral arrangements, old habits die hard, even when you're not the event planner. Charlotte approached with a magazine in hand. Have you seen this? She asked, showing me the society pages. There was Eleanor, photographed at some resort in Palm Beach, looking significantly less polished than in her Blackwood days. The headline read, Disgraced Boston socialite seen working as resort activities director. I couldn't help but smile. She always did love organizing other people's lives. Dad's lawyers found most of the money, Charlotte said, setting down the magazine. She had it scattered across different accounts, but they're recovering it slowly, though I doubt she'll ever be welcomed back into Boston society. The sound of laughter drew our attention to the garden doors, where James was chatting with his father. Richard Blackwood had changed dramatically since Eleanor's departure. He'd stepped back from the company's daily operations, focusing instead on rebuilding relationships with his children. Today he looked relaxed in a light summer suit, his usual stern expression replaced by genuine warmth. Victoria, he called out, walking over. Everything looks perfect, but you shouldn't be working at your own celebration. Once an event planner, always an event planner, I replied, straightening his boutonniere. Besides, this is different. This is family. The word hung in the air, carrying new meaning. Family, not the rigid, hierarchical structure Eleanor had enforced, but something warmer, more genuine. Just then, Marcus burst in, waving an envelope. You'll never believe what Mom just tried. We gathered around as he opened a formal-looking letter. She's demanding to be invited tonight. Says it's her right as the family matriarch to be present at all significant occasions. Instead of the tension such a demand would have once created, laughter rippled through our group. Eleanor's attempts to maintain control had become almost comical in their desperation. Should we tell her the party was last week? Charlotte suggested with a grin. Or that we moved to Tibet? James added. Or, I said, taking the letter and deliberately dropping it into a nearby trash bin. We could just enjoy our evening without giving her another thought. The ceremony itself was everything our first wedding should have been. Genuine, joyful, and surrounded by people who truly cared about us. Father Thompson, the real one, officiated again, adding a touch of humor to the proceedings by checking everyone's credentials beforehand. During the reception, Richard clinked his glass for a toast. The room fell silent as he stood, looking more emotional than I'd ever seen him. A year ago, he began, I thought I knew what family meant. I thought it was about maintaining appearances, protecting our name, keeping to our own circle. I was wrong. He turned to face James and me. Victoria, when you first joined our family, I let Eleanor convince me you weren't our kind of people. But you show us what real family values look like. Honesty, courage, and unconditional love. You did just marry James. You helped heal this entire family. Tears pricked my eyes as Richard raised his glass. To Victoria and James, thank you for showing us a better way to be a family. Later that evening, as James and I swayed to a slow dance, he whispered, "Any regrets?" About how everything turned out with Mom. I thought about Eleanor, about her schemes and manipulation, about how her attempts to destroy us had ultimately freed the entire family from her control. None, I replied honestly. She tried to prove I didn't belong in this family, but instead she proved she was the one who never understood what family really means. James pulled me closer. You know, she called me yesterday. Wanted to know if I'd support her moving back to Boston. And I told her she'd lost the right to dictate our lives the day she tried to invalidate our marriage. She didn't like that much. I glanced around the room, at Charlotte teaching her kids a silly dance move, at Marcus and his husband planning their upcoming adoption, at Richard actually relaxing and enjoying himself. I'd say we're doing pretty well without her influence. The summer house, once a symbol of Eleanor's materialistic values, had become something else entirely. A place where the Blackwood family could be genuine, where pretense fell away, and where love didn't come with conditions. As the evening wound down, I stepped out onto the terrace for a moment of quiet. The garden lights twinkled like stars, and the soft sound of waves from the nearby beach created a perfect backdrop for reflection. Eleanor had tried to prove I didn't deserve this life, this family. Instead, she'd proven that sometimes the people who try hardest to protect family traditions are the ones who understand family the least. I smiled, thinking of the irony. In trying to break us apart, she'd made us stronger. In trying to maintain control, she'd lost everything. And in trying to prove I didn't belong, she'd helped me find my true place in the family she left behind. I've never even met this child. Michael's voice echoed through the courtroom, dripping with calculated innocence. She's completely making this up, Your Honor. I sat there, my hands steady as I held the weathered school yearbook in my lap, watching my ex-husband perform his carefully rehearsed act. The same man who'd attended every father-daughter dance for 6 years was now claiming our Emma didn't exist. My name is Alexandra Winter, and at 35, I never imagined I'd be sitting in a courtroom proving my daughter's existence to her own father. But life has a way of surprising you, especially when you're dealing with someone desperate enough to deny their own flesh and blood to avoid paying child support. Your Honor, Michael continued, his voice smooth as silk, I left the marriage 7 years ago. If there was a child, why am I just hearing about this now? He spread his hands wide, the picture of bewilderment. The expensive suit he wore, probably bought by his new 20-something girlfriend, was a far cry from the t-shirts he used to wear to Emma's soccer games. I caught my lawyer, Diana Martinez, giving me a subtle nod. We prepared for this moment, anticipated Michael's performance. The past 3 months had been a masterclass in his deception, ever since he'd decided that acknowledging Emma's existence would interfere with his new life. Mrs. Winter, Judge Thompson turned to me, her expression neutral. These are serious allegations. Mr. Sullivan claims he has no knowledge of this child, yet you're seeking 7 years of back child support. Yes, Your Honor, I replied, my voice clear and firm. And I can prove not only that Michael knows about Emma, but that he was an active part of her life until 6 months ago. Michael's lawyers shifted uncomfortably. They hadn't expected evidence. They counted on it being my word against his, banking on the fact that Michael had managed to keep Emma off his social media, had never listed her on his tax returns, and had paid for everything in cash to avoid a paper trail. Approach the bench, Judge Thompson instructed. I stood, the yearbook heavy in my hands. Each step felt deliberate, meaningful. This wasn't just about the money, it was about making sure Emma knew the truth, that she had proof of who her father really was. I opened the yearbook to the first marked page. This is from Emma's first grade year, I said, pointing to a photo of the father-daughter dance. There was Michael beaming in a blue button-down shirt, holding 6-year-old Emma's hands as they twirled on the dance floor. He never missed a single dance. Michael's face drained of color. He'd forgotten about the yearbooks, hadn't he? Forgotten that schools document everything, preserving memories in ink and paper that can't be erased as easily as text messages or emails. There's more. I continued flipping through the pages. Second grade field day, where he ran the three-legged race with her. Third grade science fair, where he helped her build a model solar system. Fourth grade. That's enough, Michael suddenly burst out, his composure cracking. Those photos could be anyone. They're not clear enough, Toe. Mr. Sullivan, Judge Thompson cut him off sharply. These photographs are quite clear, and the captions list both your name and your daughter's. I watched as Michael's carefully constructed lie began to unravel. The same man who taught Emma to ride a bike, kissed her scraped knees, and cheered at her recitals was now caught in his own web of deceit. The truth was, everything had changed when Michael met Brittany. She was 23, worked at his gym, and apparently didn't want to date a man with a 12-year-old daughter. So Michael, ever adaptable, decided to simply erase Emma from his life. He blocked our numbers, moved across town, and when the child support papers were served, claimed he'd never even met her. Your Honor, Diana spoke up, we have additional evidence. Teacher testimonials, medical records where Mr. Sullivan is listed as the father, and a particularly interesting video from Emma's 5th grade graduation, where Mr. Sullivan gave a parent speech. Michael slumped in his chair, his expensive suit suddenly looking more like a costume than a symbol of success. His lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently in his ear, but I already knew we'd won. Furthermore, Diana continued, we have proof that Mr. Sullivan has been deliberately hiding his income to avoid financial responsibility. The lifestyle he currently maintains, including a new luxury car and beachfront condo, suggests an income far higher than what he's reported. Judge Thompson looked at the evidence before her, then at Michael, her expression hardening. Mr. Sullivan, this court takes a very dim view of parents who attempt to evade their responsibilities through deception. Not only have you lied about knowing your child, but you've also apparently engaged in financial manipulation to avoid support payments. I thought about Emma at home, staying with my sister, probably working on her math homework or practicing her guitar. She didn't know about this hearing. I protected her from this latest betrayal. But someday she would understand what happened here today. Someday she would know that her father's choices had nothing to do with her worth and everything to do with his own selfishness. The judge's voice pulled me back to the present. We'll take a brief recess, after which I expect to see documentation of Mr. Sullivan's actual income. And Mr. Sullivan, she fixed him with a stern look. Consider yourself fortunate if I don't refer this case for criminal prosecution for perjury. During the recess, I stood in the courthouse hallway, scrolling through my phone's photo gallery. Pictures of happier times filled the screen. Michael teaching Emma to swim, family camping trips, birthday celebrations. It was hard to reconcile these memories with the man who just denied her existence in front of a judge. Diana approached, her heels clicking against the marble floor. He wants to talk, she said, her expression cautious. His lawyer suggests we might reach a settlement. I looked up from my phone, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Now he wants to talk. After lying to the judge's face. They know they're cornered, Diana explained. The yearbook was just the beginning. Once we present the financial evidence, she trailed off meaningfully. I nodded, understanding what she wasn't saying. The past 3 months of investigation had uncovered more than just photos and school records. We'd found a carefully constructed web of hidden bank accounts, cash transactions, and deliberately underreported income. Ms. Winter. Michael's lawyer approached, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. My client would like a word. In private. I glanced at Diana, who gave a slight nod. I'll be right outside, she assured me. Following the lawyer into a small conference room, I found Michael sitting there, his earlier confidence completely deflated. He looked older somehow, the weight of his lies finally showing on his face. Alex, he started, using my old nickname like we were still friends. We need to end this. Funny. I replied, keeping my voice steady. That's exactly what I thought when I filed for child support. Instead, you decided to pretend our daughter doesn't exist. He flinched. You don't understand. Brittany, your girlfriend? I cut him off. The one who's barely older than the babysitter we used to hire for Emma. She's my fiancée now, he corrected, as if that somehow made everything better. And she didn't want complications. Complications? The word tasted like acid. That's what you're calling Emma now. Michael ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurt. I'll pay the support, he said finally. Whatever amount you're asking, just don't show the rest of what you found. Please. I thought about the evidence Deanna had gathered, the offshore account where he'd been hiding his real estate commission money, the cash deposits that conveniently never appeared on his tax returns, the fake business he'd set up in his brother's name to channel funds away from his official income. You know what's funny, Michael? I said, leaning back in my chair. I never cared about the money. All these years, Emma and I were fine on my teacher's salary. What hurts is that you didn't just abandon us. You tried to erase us. I never meant, he started. You never meant what? I interrupted. To get caught. To have to explain to your young fiancé that you have a 12-year-old daughter. To face consequences for once in your life. The door opened and Diana poked her head in. They're calling us back. Standing up, I smoothed my skirt and gathered my composure. The judge needs to see everything, Michael. Not just for the money, but because Emma deserves to have the truth on record. She deserves to know none of this was her fault. Back in the courtroom, Diana methodically presented the financial evidence. Bank statements, property records, and business documents flashed across the presentation screen. With each new revelation, Michael seemed to shrink further into his chair. Your Honor, Diana concluded, Mr. Sullivan's claimed annual income of $45,000 is a fiction. Our evidence shows his actual earnings exceed $300,000 per year, carefully hidden through various means to avoid financial responsibility. Judge Thompson's expression grew sterner with each document. Mr. Sullivan, she addressed Michael directly, would you care to explain why you reported less than a sixth of your actual income? Michael's lawyer whispered something in his ear, but he just shook his head, defeated. And would you care to explain this? Diana continued, pulling up a series of text messages on the screen, messages between Michael and his brother, joking about the fake business they'd set up. Messages that made it clear this wasn't just negligence. It was deliberate fraud. I watched as the last of Michael's carefully constructed facade crumbled. The same man who'd once promised to always protect our daughter had spent months orchestrating an elaborate scheme to deny her very existence. In light of this evidence, Judge Thompson's voice cut through the tension. This court finds Mr. Sullivan's actions not only reprehensible but potentially criminal. I am ordering immediate wage garnishment for all back child support, calculated based on his actual income. Furthermore, I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for review of possible criminal charges related to perjury and financial fraud. Michael's new fiancée, who'd been sitting quietly in the back of the courtroom, stood up and walked out. I wondered if she was finally seeing the real Michael, not the successful, carefree man he pretended to be, but the one who could deny his own child to maintain that illusion. As we left the courthouse, Diana touched my arm. You did the right thing, she said softly. Some truths need to come to light, no matter how uncomfortable. I thought about Emma, about the conversation we would need to have. She was old enough to understand what had happened, old enough to know that sometimes people we love can disappoint us deeply. But she was also strong enough to survive it. She was my daughter after all. That evening, I sat with Emma on our back porch, the same spot where she used to wait for Michael to come home from work. She was strumming her guitar, the one he'd given her for her 11th birthday, just months before he disappeared from our lives. Mom, she said, setting the guitar aside. Something happened today, didn't it? Aunt Sarah was acting weird when she picked me up from school. I took a deep breath. I promised myself I'd always be honest with Emma, even when the truth hurt. Yes, honey. There was a court hearing today. About your dad. Her fingers traced the pattern on her guitar strap. Did he really tell everyone I wasn't real? My heart clenched. Of course she knew. Kids at school probably talked. Small towns have a way of making sure everyone knows everything. Yes, I said softly, but we proved he was lying. With the yearbooks? She asked, surprising me. I saw you packing them in your car last night. I nodded. Those and other things. The judge made sure everyone knew the truth. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. Is that why he left? Because he didn't want me anymore? No, sweetheart. I pulled her close. He left because he's weak, because he cared more about looking good to his new girlfriend than being honest about who he is. That's not your fault. It's his failure, not yours. We sat there in silence. watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange. Emma had her father's eyes, but her spirit, that unwavering strength, was all her own. My phone buzzed. A text from Diana. Michael's brother agreed to testify about the fake business. DA is moving forward with charges. I showed Emma the message. She deserved to know everything. Dad might be in trouble with the law, I explained. He did some things that weren't just wrong, they were illegal. Like pretending I didn't exist. Her voice was small but steady. Like hiding money and lying to the court, I clarified. But yes, denying you was part of it. Emma picked up her guitar again, strumming a few chords before speaking. You know what's weird, Mom? I'm kind of glad. Glad? Yeah, she continued, because now I know for sure it wasn't in my head. All those times he promised to come to my recitals and didn't show up. All those texts he didn't answer. He was really doing it on purpose. I'm not crazy for feeling hurt. I marveled at my daughter's wisdom. At 12, she understood something had taken me years to learn. Sometimes knowing the harsh truth is better than living with uncertain hope. The next few weeks brought changes. Michael's fiancé called off their engagement after learning about his deception. His real estate license was suspended pending investigation. The DA's office moved forward with fraud charges. But the biggest change was in Emma. She started talking more in her therapy sessions, joined the school band, and even signed up for a summer science camp she'd been hesitant about before. You seem happier, I observed one morning as she practiced her guitar. I am, she said. I'm not waiting anymore for Dad to notice me or love me or whatever. I'm just living. The wisdom of children never ceases to amaze me. 3 months after the court hearing, we received an unexpected letter. It was from Michael, written from his brother's house where he'd been staying since losing his condo. Dear Emma, it began. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. We read it together, Emma's head resting on my shoulder. The letter was full of excuses thinly disguised as apologies, talks of changes he promised to make, mentions of time he wanted to spend together once things settled down. What do you want to do? I asked her after we finished reading. Emma thought for a moment, then walked to her desk and pulled out a sheet of paper. In her neat handwriting, she wrote, Asterisk, dear Dad, I exist. I've always existed. I'm not waiting anymore. Emma asterisk. She sealed it in an envelope and handed it to me. Can you nail this? I hugged her tight, this beautiful, strong girl who'd learned too young that sometimes the people who should love us the most can hurt us the deepest. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she asked, Mom, are you glad the truth came out? I thought about the months of preparation, the stress of the court battle, the pain of watching Michael's lies exposed. Yes, I answered honestly. Because now we can both move forward knowing we deserve better. She nodded, already half asleep. We do deserve better, she mumbled. And we have better. We have us. Sitting there, watching my daughter drift off to sleep, I realized she was right. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about winning court battles or exposing lies. Sometimes it's about finding the strength to stand in your truth, to know your worth, and to choose yourself, even when others don't choose you.